In this section, we are going to talk about the concepts that are used, starting out with opposing candles. Now for opposing candles, we are always going to use this series of down close candles or the series of up close candles. Once the opening price in the series of down close candles or the opening price in the series of up close candles is closed through, then we can anticipate a continuation as this trend has shifted from bullish to bearish or bearish to bullish. Now, what is noted down here is we are only focused on those series of candles. We aren't really interested in these small little candles within the move. Now, the important thing with a series of candles is it has to occur at a point of interest. Now, the first of those points of interest is going to be a high or a low. So you can see we sweep out a low, marking out the series of down close candles that made that low. Once it is closed through, then we can anticipate this change in the state of delivery or this opposing candle formation to support price higher. And with this bearish example, we go and find the high, which has swept out the high to its left. We find this series of up close candles. Once closed through the opening price, we can then anticipate price to have shifted directions and continue lower. Now, the only time we won't need a high or low ran out is if we have SMT. So using a correlated asset such as NQ and the S&P, if NQ has not taken out the low and the S&P has, we then have an SMT, and that is the one time we can use these opposing candles that didn't technically make the low or the high. Now the next point of interest is going to be a fair value gap. So here you can see we have a fair value gap in which price reaches into that fair value gap, then closes over the series of down close candles. Now you can see since this is only a single candle, there is no series. That is when I will use the single candle. Once that is closed through, then I can anticipate price to continue higher or to continue lower. And now the last point of interest, or using other opposing candles, this is only going to be used if there is no fair value gap or high or low. So you can see once we have a close through this area, there is no fair value gap in this area or a low to be swept out. Then we can use this as a point of interest to continue higher. So when price comes back down, retests this area, closes over, then we can anticipate this low to hold as we trade higher. The one thing we need to talk about with opposing candles is the area we anticipate to react or to be sensitive to price. So with this series of opposing candles formed off the low, since we have retch into a low, closed through the series of down close candles, marking out the opening price, I will measure from the body to body, and using 50% or a 0.5 fib of that, then I will anticipate the upper half to be respected in a bullish scenario and the lower half to be respected in a bearish scenario. So with highlighting that out in green or in gray, you can get a visual on the area that you anticipate price to be respected. So here we are with a few examples, and if you notice, we have taken out a low to our left, and that would be a valid point of interest. Now, if you remember from our last section, what do we need to look for? We find the low, we find this series of candles that made that low, or the series of down close candles, and then I will mark out the opening price in that series. So if price goes and closes over this, then I can anticipate this low to hold and the trend to have shifted. You can see we have formed a low. Do we get the closure over? We do. So now with this, I can mark out from the series of bodies, so from the body high to the body low, mark out 50% of that, or the equilibrium. And from here, what area do I anticipate to push price higher? I'd want to see price respect the upper 50% here. So as we let this continue, what happens? Price comes back down into this upper 50%. We want to see that be respected. It is respected. And then we trade higher after a bit of consolidation. Now, as we dig a bit deeper in here, you can see this is formed off of a swing low. What is the other point of interest we could be looking for? We could be looking for a fair value gap. So if you notice, we have a fair value gap right here. So marking that out, you can see price reaches into a fair value gap, which is a point of interest. You can see this is aligning with the trend higher. So if we're looking for this series of down close candles into this point of interest, there is only one here. So I'd go ahead and mark out that level. And you can see once closed over, I expect this low to hold as we trade higher. Furthermore, we can mark out 50% of this body and we expect that to hold. So you can see we get that move higher, respecting 50% of this body. So now that you have seen what opposing candles look like at a low or a high or a fair value gap, when would I use an opposing candle? So you can see here we have swept out a high. So then looking from this high, where are the series of candles that made it? These up close candles here, marking that out. This is what would be our change in the state of delivery or the creation of these opposing candles. Now, if you notice, we don't have any swing highs in this area or fair value gaps to be taken out. So in this case, if I'm anticipating this high to hold, I can use this as a point of interest for price to trade off of to trade lower. As we let this continue, that can be our point of interest to trade lower. And so just to review one more time, only will I use opposing candles as a level if there is no fair value gap or high in here.